Inflammation. So inflammation is the body's first response to a trauma. That could be a chemical trauma, an electrical trauma, a physical trauma. So the goal of inflammation is to sequester or kind of shut off the pathogen from the rest of the body, or an allergen if it happens to be an allergen. And it's also to bring in more of your cells and your chemicals to help fight this invading enemy. So when cells are injured, right, they can't talk to each other. They can't talk to other parts of the body. So they talk by releasing chemicals. That's how cells signal each other. So if we look over here, some of the chemicals that are released are histamine, which is a chemical that causes increased permeability of the blood vessels. So it means that those squamous cells in the endothelium start to separate a little bit. That makes it easier for white blood cells to squeeze through those spaces, or if you look over here, to do what's called diapedesis, which means those white blood cells are squeezing through the capillary walls. They also release complements, which we've talked about or will talk about. That's another group of chemicals that initiates other responses to help you fight off foreign invaders. Bradykinins, which are called kinins here, those help to signal the nerves that there's pain in this area, and then your brain becomes aware of the problem, and then you can consciously and unconsciously help to keep yourself from being further injured. Prostaglandins also work similarly to histamines and increase permeability and this inflammatory process. So let's look at some of the factors that occur, some of the events that occur, and why they occur, and what you're going to see on the outside of the body. These signs down here in red, heat, redness, pain, and swelling, and then temporary impairment is now considered the fifth sign of inflammation. Those are what you're going to see at the site of injury. So what leads to these? When arterioles dilate and the capillaries become more permeable, we get what's called hyperemia, which literally means more blood has come to the area. That area will thus appear more red, and you'll have some heat that's brought in the plasma of the blood. Because remember, blood has plasma, 55%, and then 90% of the plasma is water. Water brings heat to the area that creates a temperature that is unfavorable to microorganisms. So you're basically kind of boiling them, and it increases heat in that area, which helps speed up the chemical reactions that you're doing to help fight this infective agent. Over here, that increased permeability of the capillaries causes more fluid to come into that space, which is what causes the swelling. And the swelling is indicative of more of your fluid, cells, and chemicals there to fight the antigen. And it also, because liquid will create some pressure on the nerves, then that will also help you feel pain, which is a signal that there's a problem, and it helps to make that area a little bit harder to move. And that's a good thing, because that helps to prevent you from doing further damage. If we go over here, another group of chemicals that's released are called leukocytosis inducing factors, which do exactly that. Leukocytosis is the process of making more red blood cells. So those chemicals will help to make the spleen release some of the monocytes and the platelets that are stored there. It'll force red bone marrow to do the same thing. And then using some chemical breadcrumbs, those white blood cells will migrate to the area of infection or the area of inflammation, and then they do their jobs. The white blood cell jobs that we've talked about previously, like neutrophils And macrophages would phagocytize cellular debris, or they phagocytize infected cells or pathogenic cells to help clean that area out so that you can then perform repairing processes.